Out here at our studio garden near our bog area, we have a bed in the shade that we like to plant a colorful shade-tolerant annual every year. Some years we go with impatiens, other years we go with coleus. This year we've got caladiums in this spot, and the one that we have in here this year is one of my favorites. It's called Gingerland, and it's a variety that's fairly short, or sort of a dwarf caladium. The leaves aren't entirely huge, but I just love the colors. You get the leaf here with the green edge, and then the background is white and some green sprinkles, and then you get this wonderful cranberry color just sort of splashed throughout the leaf. I think it makes just a striking combination, the Gingerland caladium. Now, caladiums, of course, aren't winter hardy. They grow from a tuber, a little bulb-like organ that we plant out in the mid part of May after the soil has warmed up, and then they sprout these leaves and they look great throughout the growing season. Now, if we wanted, here in the fall, we could wait until after we've had a frost and come out and dig those tubers and then store those for the winter. But they're pretty inexpensive, so it's really pretty easy to just buy them again every year. So you could store them, or you could just get them new each spring. Well, in this part of the garden, there are a few maintenance items that we could work on right now. And looking at this hosta out here in the shade, you can see that it had a little bit of a rough time this summer. We had such a hot summer, and it was dry. We had a lot of hot wind that scorched the edge of some of the leaves. Of course, we tried to keep these moist, but still got a little bit of wind scorch from the winds coming up from the southwest. Now, if we were going to have some folks over to look at the garden or something like that at our home, we could take our scissors if we wanted to spend the time and just come out and maybe trim off some of this brown just to make them look good. It's not really going to do a lot for the plant, but just kind of get rid of some of that brown color. But that does take a lot of time and not really necessary. But one thing you could do to also dress up, make this area look better, is to come in and cut away all these faded flower stalks. Flowers have since dropped off, and just getting rid of those will make the plant look a lot better. Now, of course, when you plant hostas in your shaded garden, you want to give them an organic soil, incorporate lots of compost and stuff like that to build up your soil, and then just be patient, because it takes a while for hostas to get established and to create a clump like this one. This one's been here a number of years, but just cutting away all of those faded flower stalks will make the clump look a little better. Well, I was out here just the other day and I noticed something else that we need to take care of in this part of the garden. Right here, we've got a beautiful variegated boxwood shrub. And I was noticing that down at the base of the plant, the tag has been left in place. You can see it wrapped around that part of the plant, or that branch. And it doesn't look like it's a material that's going to expand and come off of there. So we need to cut that away, or it's going to strangle that branch, or that part of the branch, and we could have a dead spot on our beautiful variegated boxwood. You can see the discoloration from the tag being left on there. Not really all that good for the plant. So check your shrubs, make sure those tags are removed, especially if there are any that are held on with wire, because those will girdle the stems and cause some dead spots in your shrubs. Right down here in front, we've got a neat little perennial that I like a lot, sort of a southern cottage garden plant. This is the pink wood sorrel, or Oxalis, and as the sun will hit these petals, they will unfurl a little bit more. They'll open up and look a little bit better. But this is a bulb, a hardy bulb from Argentina. Makes a great perennial for Oklahoma. You can grow it in the sun or in quite a bit of shade like it's getting here. It blooms heaviest in the springtime, but here in the fall we're sure to always get a few blooms as well. Now, it may go dormant in the summertime if it doesn't get a lot of moisture, but that's okay. It usually pops back up here in the fall. Now, if we wanted, we could come in the fall and just dig these clumps and divide those bulbs and plant them in other places in the garden if we want to. But the perennial pink wood sorrel is what we've got here. And then right down here in front, we've got a closely related cousin. We've got a weed known as the yellow wood sorrel. But you can see that the leaves look somewhat similar, sort of like shamrocks or clovers. And the yellow wood sorrel, as the name implies, does have yellow flowers. Got one just starting to open right there. But not really desirable to have in the garden. It is native, it's not introduced, but still can be a weed in the garden. The flowers, little yellow flowers, or the flower buds, have a lot of oxalic acid in them. So if you want to taste them, you can taste that sour taste from the oxalic acid. And some people will sprinkle a few of these in salads to give their salad a little bit of zip. But you don't want to eat too many of them because you can get too much oxalic acid in. That's not really all that good. They also have interesting seed capsules right down here. Got a seed capsule of the yellow wood sorrel, and they have an interesting dispersal mechanism. When those dry out, slits will form in the side, and sometimes you can tap those and the seeds can be flung. And they can be flung several feet. And if you look right over here, we've got a container that's got sort of a little ground cover of the yellow wood sorrel. You can see all those leaves, and got some huge seed pods forming right here. So those seeds can be flung several feet. Well, I've got a few other weeds that I want to show you that have interesting seed dispersal mechanisms. This plant is known as hedge parsley, and it is a cool season annual, and it grew back in the late winter and spring, and the plant has since died as it's just an annual, but it left behind the seed stalk and up here some of the seeds. Now, these seeds of the hedge parsley are also known as beggar ticks, and that's because when you bump into them, you usually get them on your clothing, and animals get them on their fur. Sort of the bane of hikers whenever they're out and about and they come back and they have to spend several minutes cleaning those off of their pants or whatever. But the seeds are real interesting because they have these tiny little hooked spines, and they attach themselves sort of Velcro-like to the fur or to the clothing, and that helps them to be dispersed. Now, the hedge parsley is not native to the United States. It actually comes from Europe and Asia, so it was introduced here. And as you can see, it can easily be spread around by the way its seeds attach. Well, out here in our herb garden, we've got a plant coming up in this spot that we actually need to pull out because this is a plant known as Bidens. It's in the daisy family, and you can kind of see some of the little yellow daisies up here on top, just starting to kind of open up there in this flower. But its common name comes from the way its seeds get around. Now, right here we've got a seed head. The flowers have since faded, but we've got some seeds maturing there in the center, and I'll just try to pull some of these out. But these seeds, with the achene at the bottom, we'll get one right here. The achene, or the fruiting part that will sprout here at the bottom, and then up at the top there are 3 hairs or awns, and these have little hooked spines, and they attach themselves to clothing or fur as well, and you can see how they kind of stick in there. But this plant is known as Spanish needles, and because of those 3 spines, it sometimes will also go by the name of devil's pitchfork. But another interesting way that its seeds are dispersed. Those needles just kind of go in the clothing and just kind of hang on there. But we'll go ahead and pull this Spanish needles plant out of this bed to make sure whenever people are walking by here, they don't get a lot of those seeds attached to their clothing. Well, another little weed we've got here in the herb garden that I want to show you is this one. And this one's a real lowlife. It's an annual that only grows to be about 1 inch tall. This is known as spotted spurge, and it has a closely related family member known as the prostrate spurge, and it grows also very low, just doesn't have the spots on the leaves. But these plants are in the milkweed family, and you can see whenever you break the stem, there's a little bit of that milky sap that comes out, and some gardeners will have a reaction to that milky sap. I don't seem to have a problem with it, but if you're going to be pulling this out by hand, it's a good idea to wear some rubber gloves. And that is a good way to get these plants out of the garden. They can be sprayed, but hand pulling is effective, and hoeing them is also effective. All the branches start at one little tap root here. You can usually kind of gather this up and just pull it up from the bed or the pathway. Sometimes these will be in the turf, in poor turf areas where the turf has kind of gotten thin. But the spotted spurge, it's a good idea to get those out of the garden, out of the landscape this time of the year, because they are getting ready to release hundreds, if not thousands, of little seeds. So I want to make sure we get rid of all of the spotted or prostrate spurge. Well, while we're here in the herb garden, I want to talk about another plant right here. This is garlic chives, and it makes a great addition to dishes. You can use it as a substitute for garlic, sort of a milder garlic flavor. You can also use it in place of chives. It's a little bit stronger growing than the regular chives, but imparts that sweetly garlic type flavor, not quite as intense as true garlic. But the garlic chives, after they have flowered, you can see right down here on this umbel that the flowers are almost gone and it's starting to make these little green fruits. Well, these will dry, they'll become hard, and then they'll release lots of little black seeds. And the garlic chives will set their seed about in the garden. We've got some little plants right here from the seeds from last year coming up in different parts of our garden. So in order for that to not occur this next year, it's a good idea after the garlic chives have finished flowering to come out and just snip all of those seed heads away so we don't get all those babies. Well, we've talked about a few weedy plants here in our herb garden, but before we leave, just want to show you some activity going on with our bronze fennel. We got some swallowtail butterfly larvae, those beautiful black and sort of yellow and green striped caterpillars feeding on this plant, and they will soon metamorphosize into beautiful swallowtail butterflies.